what is the Bitcoin farmers market?
The farmers market has brought an opportunity for anybody to partake in the circular economy that's happening in Bitcoin Beach now.
More and more people coming there and asking for, hey, do you accept Bitcoin? Small business owners have to accept it at some point. In El Salvador, there's something beautiful happening.
In the last 2 years, El Salvador has changed a lot in terms of security and the ability to move around.
How much safer is El Salvador now?
It's kind of tricky because we arrived literally like 2 months before the mass murder weekend happened.
What does it mean for you both to be free? And especially because you're in El Salvador, you're living on a kind of a Bitcoin standard. I guess it's not a full Bitcoin standard, but it's like the closest thing people are now experiencing on a full Bitcoin standard. So like, how does this all come together?
Okay, wow. All right. Freedom. It's a great question. And I guess I don't really have a desire to control other people. And when other people try to control me outside of any sort of arrangement, that's definitely encroaching on my freedom.
Yeah.
So I think in New Zealand that was probably starting to happen. And so coming to El Salvador, we felt like it was an opportunity to start a new life with something that we thought was interesting. And Bitcoin is a tool. I've been in Bitcoin for quite a while, and it's also a philosophy for me now. And the ability to be able to take control and responsibility of my financial wealth is really empowering. It's really interesting. I enjoy the challenge of it, and I enjoy the freedom of it.
And I'm also going to put in there the chains of being with a mortgage and having to work so many hours a day, and needing to earn a certain income so you can actually survive in the Western world was to me, it was not freedom. So to be able to come here, no, we don't own our home, we do rent, but we have a lot more freedom without having those restrictions on us.
Yeah. And
Go ahead.
I grew up in a small family business, and that gave me a lot of freedom to do things the way I wanted to do them, which I think was quite interesting because a few times that I did go into a more structured job, it didn't sit well with me. So becoming a contractor was something that worked really well for me because I could work more often than not when I wanted, earn income. And it also gave me building skills that could earn an income online, gave me the freedom to start working wherever there was internet. So once you start to get a taste for that freedom, it's hard to give it up.
Yeah. And and we can also sort of move it forward a little bit by being up here in Berlin, in El Salvador, the freedom to walk out of a shop because they don't accept Bitcoin, knowing that we can go to another store that will accept Bitcoin is a great freedom for us to be able to do that. And we can do that here, which is amazing.
It's a crazy freedom. Like I always tried also with, like, I'm in Austria, and the adoption is not closely as far as in El Salvador. I guess I never was in El Salvador. I have to do it. It's on my to-do list for this year. And I always try to ask people, do you accept Bitcoin? And the answers are in like 9 of 10 cases, no. What is that? Why should we? What something rejecting. Like in 1 of 10 cases, it's like a slightly positive answer, or maybe even okay, yes. How can we do it? But it's in smaller stores, in like family-owned stores. Like they are more accepting of new stuff, I guess. And the big chains sometimes don't even have the possibility to do it. How did you first discover like Bitcoin for you? Did you discover it together, or like did someone of you orange pill the other one? Or how did this go?
I think, I'll start with my story.
Yes.
So growing up in a family business, one of the things that was really important was how money worked. I mean, I'm putting all this time and effort in to earn this thing called money, and it's like, how does that work? And I learned quite early on that we use something called fiat currency. And once I learned what fiat currency was and that there was some dude just standing there helping himself to it, I realized that I needed to figure out a solution to this. So I actually went into gold and silver, and I bought lots of gold and silver to back my wealth. But what I started realizing was that game was also manipulated and rigged. And then I was very fortunate to be able to grow up with a computer. And when the internet came along, I'd already played with bulletin boards and modems, and I was like, wow, the internet, this is pretty cool. I could have a server on the internet and access it from anywhere in the world. And for me, this concept was really cool. So when I was introduced to Bitcoin, I quickly saw the power of a decentralized money, and you put the time and the effort in and start asking questions. I'd already played with cryptography. I'd already started using PGP for signing emails and things like that. So when I came across Bitcoin, I understood a number of the technologies that were behind it, including like money and the internet. And it made a lot of sense to me when I started digging into it. So when I saw it, I wanted it to be what it is, if you know what I mean. I think a lot of people are skeptical of it. And I mean, I've definitely had my war stories and learning to handle it and buy it and sell it and do all these crazy things you do with it, lose it and get in scams. And over the years, it's just become more and more empowering. And that's because the technology's just become better and more accepted and more understood, and there are more people involved, which makes it easier. It's really good. And
yeah. Okay. And then for me, I'm very much quite a newbie when it comes to Bitcoin. I met James. Well, the first conversation James and I had was, I sort of said, what are you into? And he said, Bitcoin. And I said, sweet, I need to talk to you. That was partly because I come from the financial background in New Zealand with mortgages. So I was helping people get into debt. And though the company I worked for, we were very focused on helping them pay their debt off faster than what the normal banks were. But we were all having to be retrained. So all the financial advisors in New Zealand were having to be retrained, and the triple CFA laws were coming in, and we were having to pretty much manually analyze bank statements and see what people were spending money on. And through that, even though it was their variable spend, so it was money that they didn't, that was theirs. To me, it was their money that they could spend what they liked. That was getting accounted for if they were spending too much on takeaways, if they were spending too much on alcohol, or there was just all these things that we're having to take into account. And I was going, this is none of our business. And so it wasn't sitting well with me, and I was getting very frustrated. And I had people coming wanting mortgages, and they're having to pay this tax on this profit they were making in their crypto or Bitcoin. And I was like going, okay, I know we're not going to accept that as a form of income. But then, I was able to then talk to James, and it was really good too. That's how I got caught up in this wonderful journey that we're on.
And this was back in New Zealand, and now you moved, I think, like, what did you say, 2 years ago to El Salvador?
Yeah.
And you now even moved to Berlin, which
Yes.
was confusing for me in the beginning, because Berlin, like in Austria, like in Germany, the capital of Germany is called also Berlin. And I was like, why are those Bitcoin dudes now all talking about Berlin? What's so special about Berlin? It was kind of the moment when I first got into Bitcoin, and I heard about Austrian economics, and I'm living in Austria, and I'm like, the economics in Austria is not that great. So why are those Bitcoiners all praising Austrian economics? And then I learned it's like the Austrian school of economics, the Hayek and all those others, and not the current financial system of Austria. And it's also, I think it goes into the question, how, like, if you're in El Salvador, you're spending Bitcoin, you're probably also spending US dollar. I guess it's not fully, you cannot live fully on Bitcoin.
Right.
But you probably spend also a lot of Bitcoin. In El Salvador, there are no capital gains taxes. In Austria, Germany, in Europe, America, the story is just a different one with taxes, and you have to declare it and stuff like that. How important for like the Bitcoin adoption do you think is it that we actually spend the Bitcoin, get in circular economy, and then exchange it and then build something. Not just holding it, but actually using Bitcoin also.
Wow, okay, it's a great question. I know it's a hot topic for a lot of people. So we're big advocates of what I would call earn, save a percentage, and spend, and then repeat. So we're encouraging people because it's possible. And I know it's not perfect, but if you are serious about adoption, just buying and holding and using it as a store of value, especially in these early stages, I mean, the cost for people in the Western world, it's doable to earn it and save it and spend it on the Lightning Network and pay the network fees. But I really do believe that if we're to see, like, if people really want Bitcoin to be a tool that helps improve the monetary system in the world, then I feel like I need to live it. So I want to use it as a cash system. And when we came to El Salvador and we started doing Lightning transactions, it was just like, whoa, this is amazing. And then after 1 year at the beach, we couldn't get enough Bitcoin transactions, Lightning transactions. It was just frustrating. When we came to Berlin and they had 20 businesses on board the first time we came up, and we went around and we were using it, and it was really, really great.
Yeah.
And that was when we knew we had to come and be part of this. And now we've got 90 plus businesses on the map using or accepting Bitcoin Lightning. And it works. It works. It really does. And I think what's happening is we're seeing people who have always used the US dollar, never been big technology people. So I'm talking about the local Salvadoran business owners that have started accepting it, and thankfully with skepticism, which is good. I think it's healthy to be skeptical. And then over the last 6 or 7 months that they've been involved, they're the really early adopters. We have seen their attitude shift. We've seen their interest shift. We've been able to build relationships with them as well. But in that time, while we've been doing that, seeing how they see hope in the technology that's coming and the ability to use another form of money that because they start asking different questions, right? In the beginning, money is money and they don't worry about it. But then they're like, why are you interested in Bitcoin? And when you start talking about why you're interested in Bitcoin and the freedom that it gives and the global network and how it can change lives, that's really cool. And honestly, we can't really communicate it as well as we would like to in Spanish with people when they speak to us. But thankfully, we have Evelyn and Gerardo and Charlie and a few other people who have great Spanish and great English and great Bitcoin understanding. And they're doing a great job of being able to fill these gaps. And one of the things that we're just doing here is we're demonstrating that there are people from around the world that want to be part of this, and they're as excited as we are because it's bringing attention to their little town. So I don't know if that. I think that I'm trying to express how I feel. Like it's not just the importance of using Lightning for the sake of improving the technology, but there are greater social implications on doing this.
Yeah, I was going to say it helps for people to understand it that much faster, I believe, with using the Lightning Network. You've got the tender, the storeholders who, don't really, maybe not have been to school or done much schooling. And then all of a sudden when their light bulb clicks that they've got this peer-to-peer transfer of value that it's not related to I'm going to say not related to the government, but there's no in-between person. It's amazing. And then they start using it more. So they're now using it and buying products that they need to on sell or products for their cafe from other local tenders around. So the Bitcoin is actually getting circulated around, and there's some businesses who are now paying their staff part of their wages in Bitcoin. So you're seeing this growth and it's the fact that they feel empowered, the fact that it is their money and it's their choice to be spending it here with no, there's no intermediary person or thing, which is awesome.
It's a great thing that all day long, like we spend a lot of time saying on the internet, saying on Twitter, saying on YouTube, on all the platforms. Oh, Bitcoin is also a medium of exchange. You use it, you transfer it, like circular economy. But we're saying a lot on the internet, but it's actually happening in El Salvador, in the world. Like there are places where people are exchanging Bitcoin, and I think it's a beautiful thing. And I also heard, I think you were both writing it to me, that Nicki, you are making soap and also selling it on the Bitcoin farmers market. Like, first of all, it's an amazing thing to make Bitcoin soap and get probably also Bitcoin back for it.
Yes.
And what is the Bitcoin farmers market in general?
Well, James and Kiki from down in El Zonte, Canadian and Australian Canadian, they've been in El Salvador nearly the same length of time of us, and they've pretty much stayed in El Zonte the whole time. And about, I don't know, it wouldn't have been a year ago. I'm not sure how long.
9 months,
9 months
roughly.
ago?
Yeah.
They just came up with an idea to start a Bitcoin farmers market down there. And what's happened is because we had Beef Back Better producing, good grass-fed meat here for a lot of people who wanted it. Kiki makes amazing butter. James is interested in pork and bacon and ham, and so we had all these people who were creating things that they wanted to sell for Bitcoin, and they wanted to get a Bitcoin income, and they created the Bitcoin Farmers Market, which is every second Sunday. And the vendors now, we've got Salvadorian vendors, we've got foreigners, and we're all like, there's one thing I was really missing: good soap here. We came from a town where we went to our Saturday morning market and were able to buy handmade soaps. So when Owen from Beef Back Better had created, that was doing the beef, and all of a sudden he had this tallow, I thought, great, I'm going to learn how to make tallow soap. And so that's what I did. And it's going really well.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah.
It's a great story.
Well, it's I think it's put a heart and a soul, more heart and soul into Bitcoin Beach. So Bitcoin Beach is a very small community, and the businesses there, it's saturated. It's hard to get more businesses on board, and the farmers market has brought an opportunity for anybody to partake in the circular economy that's happening in Bitcoin Beach now. So you can turn up as just a person who wants to buy a good coffee on Sunday morning and catch up with a whole heap of Bitcoiners, or you can make something or offer a service, and you can go there and set up a stall at the moment for free and say, hey, I would like to help you with your Bitcoin stuff, or I've made these bags, or I've made these jams, and I would love to sell them for Bitcoin. And so people can participate on such a small level now in the circular economy. A lot of people come and they share knowledge and they share products and they help each other out. And it's like a giant meetup on Sunday afternoon where people just come and have a great time. And it's built a sense of community, and it's bringing together the Salvadorans and the foreigners, because in the beginning, a lot of people were worried that it was only going to be the foreigners that turned up. But we came and we started, when I say we, it's like a general we in terms of foreigners came and started selling things that we wanted. We were filling a gap that we needed in the marketplace or wanted in the marketplace. And then Salvadorans who were making really cool products here realized, hey, these guys are potentially the market gap that I want to sell to. And then they started turning up, and we've had Salvadorans who are selling high quality fruits and vegetables come. We've got one guy who comes from Santa Ana, which is like 2.5 hours away, and he brings down organic vegetables sometimes. We've got ladies there who bring down homemade tinctures for skincare and smellies, and it's really cool.
We've got people who make jams and pickles, and local Salvadorans who make jams and pickles. We've got people who bring things in from America and sell them. So the coffee is a big brand, Todoti Cafe, and he's there every second Sunday, and
and it's great networking. A lot of people come and just want to. It's funny because we're committed to going every second Sunday. A lot of people will come hoping to see us there because they want to meet us and say hello and say thank you for the channel. So it's become a meetup effectively. It's a really cool meetup.
And it's a 3-hour drive for us, so it's not close, just down the road. We drive 3 hours in the morning and then come home that afternoon or that evening. So it's a big day.
It's worth it.
So every second Sunday, it's a big day there, right? Interesting, but the biggest farmers market. I think Bitcoin Beach, everybody heard because of El Salvador and the origin story, and with Jack Mallers, I think everybody heard it. But what exactly, for those don't know it, like what is it? Is it like just a beach that is do for Bitcoin? What do you mean it's saturated? What exactly is Bitcoin Beach?
Wow, if I was to describe it, it's a small surf town, which is that you got to travel there. It's not connected to the city, so you actually have to go out of your way. It's about 45 minutes. No, it's more than that from the city. An hour 20.
15.
An hour 15, an hour 20 from the city.
And I'm going to say it's a little village or a seaside village.
Yes, it's a very small town, but in the last few years, I mean, it's got an amazing reputation for surf. So it's been over the years before Bitcoin, it was actually attracting a few big hotels which have set up there for the tourists that go specifically for the surf. And a lot of those hotels are the ones that are already accepting Bitcoin because the foreigners are coming in and they're quite happy to accept it. And then Mike, the founder of Bitcoin Beach, he's lived there for I don't know how long he's been.
He's been coming for over 20 years.
Yeah. And he's the one that basically received the donation because he was already part of a charity that was happening in Bitcoin Beach. And he then started to move the integration of Bitcoin into the community, which is how it got its name, Bitcoin Beach, which is really cool. If you go to visit today, I would have to say it's changed a lot from just the last 2 years from when we first arrived. When we first arrived, we were shocked. We were literally shocked. We were like, wow, this is the famous Bitcoin Beach. Yeah. And now when you go, it just gets better and better every time. It's becoming more and more of an icon. And I think more small business owners are starting to realize that it's becoming part of the culture of the beach, and it's a good idea to accept Bitcoin here because it's becoming an icon for it. Yeah. And to say no, I think,
I think it's also popular around the world, and if more and more people coming there and asking for, hey, do you accept Bitcoin? People, the small business owners, have to accept it at some point. It's like a grassroots movement that slowly gets in the whole ecosystem, and that's an amazing thing. I have 2 more questions, maybe interesting for people that are considering also to move to El Salvador. How accepted is English in El Salvador? Is it can you speak with everybody in English, or do you have to learn their language?
I mean, Google Translate is your friend, definitely. You do, ideally, to be able to speak a little bit of Spanish is great. Coming, down at the beach, there are a lot of tourists, so there is a lot more English down there.
Yeah.
But even then, there's a lot of the small storeholders will not speak English. Coming up to the mountains, nobody speaks English, or very, very, very few. Down at the beach, you're quite often in a gated community where there's a lot of foreigners, so you don't necessarily need to speak as much English as what you,
So
not as much Spanish. You don't need to speak Spanish.
Moving to Berlin has actually been really good for our Spanish.
Yes,
because we're integrated into the community here more, and we had I would recommend putting time and effort into learning a base set of Spanish if somebody's coming. So just asking basic things like where is or how much is, things like that.
And politeness. This is good morning. Yeah.
Being polite, general greetings, introducing yourself. Where are you from? And then once you get here, those basic things can get you most things. Like you want to eat and you want to know where to go. Where's the bathroom? And thanks to, like Nicki said, Google Translate, you can fill in a lot of gaps. But for us, being here in the community is really forced
Yeah, which is great because
Yeah.
I mean that's what we wanted. We really wanted to be able to communicate in Spanish, and and so now on a daily basis we're having to speak Spanish, which is awesome. Yeah, I mean my Spanish has improved a lot. It's still got a long way to go, but I'm getting there.
I'm super excited to announce that this podcast just got the first ever sponsor. I just started the podcast out like 3 months ago, and now we have 21 Bitcoin as a partner for this podcast. 21 Bitcoin is Bitcoin only from day one, and they teach and preach self-custody. This is my go-to exchange when someone asks me, oh, where can I buy my Bitcoin from? This is the easiest entry for Bitcoiners. And if you want lower fees, plus at the same time support this podcast, use code Robin and click the link in the description. I think in El Salvador, there's something beautiful happening. And I get the vibe from a lot of people that are going there and also they are living there. And I get the vibe from people that are not living there and not being there. And I get a really different kind of mindset, something like it's almost kind of something new, something like a startup land is starting, something new and exciting, something that wasn't there before. And is it just from the outside, or is like the mindset of the people really different? How is the different mindset and vibe and the overall feeling different from like El Salvador to when you remembered earlier in New Zealand, or maybe you probably have been to other places also, like maybe I don't know if you have been to like say, how different is it in El Salvador?
I was saying this morning to Nicki that the last 2 years has actually felt like one big, massive, ongoing meetup here in El Salvador. So we had some Canadians that visited. They visited 2 years ago when we visited, and they came back recently, and they've come straight to Berlin. It was just cool to hang out with them and talk about things and similar experiences between when we both first arrived and what's changed and things like that. And that meetup culture it's always quite exciting to be constantly talking to new people and sharing similar experiences and things like that. So there's that aspect of it, and which we definitely feel after being here for 2 years. But at the same time, I definitely think there's a mindset shift here. We call it the filter. And to make a decision to come here and live in El Salvador is like, it's serious. Like it's you gotta make some really big changes in your life and commitments if you want to do this, and be willing to accept other cultures and accept different ways of life and things like that. So it is a mindset shift, and I think the people that stay and are resilient are really interesting people to talk to because they've often got a can-do attitude, which I think is important. And then here in Berlin, I feel like it's another filter on top of that because it's even less easy than San Salvador or the beach, where you have convenience of services and convenience of English. But then in the last 2 years, El Salvador has changed a lot in terms of security and the ability to move around. And I think it's changing I hope people believe it's changing for the better.
Yeah, and I think one thing to even look at is the Salvadorians that left El Salvador. You know, they escaped El Salvador when there was the gangs or whether it was a civil war. You know, they are now looking at El Salvador. They're coming back. They're investing in El Salvador. You know, there's people coming back to live here. And so for them to have the courage to come back to what they left is massive. And so they can see a shift. They can feel so much safer, so much more comfortable to come back to their home. And I think that's incredible.
Yeah, because that's a mindset. You're getting people who are curious and they're adventurous and they want to do something, right? They want to come back and they want to help. They want to help their family. They want to help their countrymen. We met a local developer here who's come back after learning and learning a lot in the States and earning money, and he understands how the development cycle of buying land and building businesses and building cash flow and taking out debt to do those things. He understands it, and he's come back and he's like, I want to build businesses here, specifically in Berlin. that help the community, that will grow the community. And yeah, it's a entrepreneurial mindset. It's a adventurous frontier mindset.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It just confirms what I get from other people. It confirms like what I see online. So you were also in the last 2 years there when the big actions against gangs were made. How did you all see that? Because I think in Central Europe, like if you look through the lens of mainstream media, you get a different kind of look to things. And I'm glad there is social media where you can get sources directly, like you can connect with you can connect with everybody directly living also there and getting some unfiltered news directly from people. And not only that, but how was that going? And I heard some crazy stories where a father said like, I can now feel safe when my daughter is going out. So like those are the kind of stories that are like really, really great. How do you live through the time of the last 2 years? How much safer is El Salvador now?
Yeah.
It's kind of tricky because we arrived literally like 2 months before that weekend, the mass murder weekend happened. So we were definitely cautious in those first 2 months, but I mean, we'd largely been fed what the mass media had been putting out there, which was fear, and our family was promoting fear, and so we were cautious, but rightfully so, right? Like, I think coming to a country like this, we should have been cautious.
Yeah.
But then it's really hard to know if it's because the country is being safer or we're more comfortable with the country. It's quite tricky, but we've definitely heard similar stories from people where they're thankful for the freedom that they can now feel about going for a walk at night, like walk their dogs at night.
Yeah, just even the kids being able to play outside. That was one thing in La Libertad when we were down at the beach and we'd go to the Mercados once a week. And all of a sudden, the kids were moving a lot more freer than what they had been earlier on. And they definitely felt, and again, this is, maybe it is because we were more used to the people, but the people felt like there was a weight off their shoulders.
Yeah, we definitely feel like we've observed that with people and the way, because in the beginning, people weren't meant to be able to move between different zones, even in their own city. If they're in a big enough city, they couldn't move from one district to another without basically crossing a gang border and being shaken down and things like that. And we hear stories of people who are like, yeah, I used to carry 2 cell phones, one to give to the gang members and one to keep. And it was just a normal way of life for them. And I'm sure I don't feel like I'm imagining it, but I'm sure we're seeing different behavior in, for example, public settings. People appear to be quite comfortable, more comfortable over the 2 years with things like just letting their children run around crazy in the public setting, right? I feel like even in the West, a lot of people are quite cautious and keeping their children close to them. But here, the community feeling of safety seems to be quite strong, because in the square where we go most weekends to enjoy at least one meal with our friends, there are kids just all over the place. And it's amazing. It's really cool.
And then when we first arrived, we were in San Salvador for 10 days. And we would walk up to the supermarket and every single store had a guard with a shotgun and the razor wire. And it was, coming from New Zealand was so sort of foreign for us that, it took us a long time to get used to that. But now you walk that street and you would maybe see 1 or 2, but that would be all.
And it's normally something that, like a money-orientated business that has a guard with it, opposed to in the past it used to be almost anything.
It was the supermarkets, it was the malls, it was, and you don't see that now.
It's reduced significantly,
I mean, that is an amazing indicator for that's how much safe it is, because like individual stories are always beautiful to hear, but it's always like it can be subjective. But if you go through the streets and the guards in front of the stores just getting a less, that's an objective measurement where you can just say, oh, it's getting safer. The stores owner are like, we don't need the guard anymore. We don't need to give money to a guard. We can keep the money, reinvest in the business because it's safe now here. Like that's an never heard that actually. That's an amazing statistics, if you so will, to measure like the kind of freedom and the kind of
and the pride that the owners have of their stores now. Like you never used to see a sign outside, so you never knew whether you're at the right place to go and buy something, because you actually had to go normally through a gate to get to the shop. And so now they're actually advertising, they're painting they're taking pride in their property and they're painting them up and they're putting signage outside and things that, so you're seeing that as well, which is really great.
Yeah, because a lot of businesses were hiding where they were. So you had to basically search the business online so you knew where to, and then you'd communicate with them and say, oh, I'd like to come and buy something. And they'd say, okay, this is our address. And you would go there and there was no signage. And we had that in one of our videos when we're doing the coconut sign, actually.
Yeah.
We were trying to find the sign business, and the sign business didn't have a sign on the street telling you where they were. And we were busy going up and down the street, knocking on doors, trying to find this business. And when we found them and bought the sign, it was like, you guys need a sign. But this is changing now, where a lot of businesses, they can advertise because they're not worried about being extorted by a gang member who finds them.
That's I love it. For the adoption, I think Bitcoin is getting more and more in El Salvador. I think it's becoming more and more a circular economy. I would love to be there once. I think in November with the Bitcoin conference, I might be there. I hope I can do it and experience myself how the Bitcoin adoption is growing, because I get different kind of reports from different kind of people. And how well can you pay everywhere with Bitcoin? I mean, what would you like say? Like, what's the percentage of stores have it and stores don't have it? Is Bitcoin in some restaurants a unit of account? Are the burgers written in satoshis? Or it's like how is that whole adoption going in El Salvador and in Berlin and El Sonte in San Salvador? Like, what's going on there?
Okay, it depends on where you go. So first, I just noticed you said you were going to come in conference. When you come at conference, make sure to book time, like an extra week before and after. Highly recommended. Some of the things that I'd recommend doing is definitely going to San Salvador, and while you're there, go to the My First Bitcoin meetup. And if you can, go to a My First Bitcoin graduation. It's a great experience. Like this is a tour that you can't like buy. It's a great experience to do. Then when you go down to Bitcoin Beach, make sure you time it to go to a farmer's market, because that experience is excellent. Also, the Bitcoin Beach meetup is very good. And it's a similar weekend to the My First Bitcoin meetup. So you can generally get those two meetups in the same one. And then make sure you put time in to come to Berlin and check out what's happening, because with 90 plus businesses on the map right now, the Lightning experience here is fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of the percentage of adoption, it's going to depend on where you go and your luck. It's going to depend on all sorts of factors.
There's definitely towns that still have got very little Bitcoin adoption. And it's only because, they haven't had an Evelyn Gerardo come in and do what Evelyn Gerardo have done here. And I think what's been amazing is we have had people, Salvadorans, come in from other towns and going, we want to create this in our town.
Yeah.
And so we will be seeing more of these adoptions come up. But
it's not just having an Evelyn and Gerardo though. So for example, one of the challenges that I think Bitcoin Beach may have had is there was existing tourist business, and this makes it challenging. So a great example was here, 5 kilometers down the road, there's a town called Alegria. This town, it attracts all the local tourists from Usulután and San Miguel up the mountain to enjoy the cool air. And this town is smaller than Berlin, but on the weekend, that town is buzzing. There are so many people. The square is literally filled with people and stalls selling trinkets and food. It is crazy. It's like a party every weekend. Berlin hasn't had that. And I think what's happened is that in Alegria, they are spoiled with so much business, they have no need to accept Bitcoin. They are happy to accept the US dollar. When we ask if they will accept Bitcoin, they're not interested. They don't even want to hear about it. They don't want to download a wallet, anything. But here in Berlin, these guys, they want more business. They need more business. And Evelyn and Gerardo said to them, would you like more business? And they're like, I'd love more business. How are you going to do it? Download the Bitcoin Beach wallet and start accepting, the Blink wallet. Download the Blink wallet and start accepting Bitcoin. And sure enough, the tourists started coming. We're here, we go. After the conference, more tourists came. And what's happening is the people in Berlin are like, wow, all I have to do is start accepting Bitcoin and people will come spend, new money will come into the economy and be spent with me. And once they see how simple that is, we've literally got businesses here that took it upon themselves to download the wallet, print out their own sign, put it out the front, and we were just blown away. And of course, the first thing we do is we're like, I got to eat here, right? So we go and spend money with them. So some towns in El Salvador are spoiled with tourist numbers, or they don't want to change their way of life. And that's okay. But there are other towns that have a dream and they have desire and they have motivation and they're willing to try something new with an open mindset. And I think the people of Berlin were inspired. They saw an opportunity to have a little bit more and they grabbed it and ran with it, and it's paying off. I believe it's paying off for them. Lots of them are very happy with what's happening, the growth.
It's almost like the towns that need it more do it more likely. It's almost like El Salvador itself, because it was a country that needed the freedom and Bitcoin more than other countries, and now it's on the takeover side. It's like a country that really is growing and is developing really, really good, as I can see. You're really deep into like circular economy, and you probably use Bitcoin on almost a daily basis. What kind of setup do you have? Like, what Lightning wallets do you found most useful? What tools do you use daily? How's your Bitcoin setup going? I mean, I know that's always a difficult question, because some people are also, especially when it goes on, how to self-custody and stuff like that, people don't want to tell, because it could tell how you self-custody and give hackers and attackers and attack vectors. So like, you don't have to give anything up from your privacy, but like, what can you recommend for daily use, especially as a medium of exchange?
Daily usage, well, the Blink wallet is probably one of the fastest, easiest wallets out there. And it's available to everybody other than North Korea, China, and people in the United States. Which is kind of funny.
And what's great about it, it has the stable sats option, which for people just new to Bitcoin, quite often we're wanting to hold it in a US dollar currency type.
Yeah.
What do you call it?
Store of value.
Store of value. So that's awesome. They've also now just recently done where they can connect to their bank account if they have a bank account. So Blink for us and for a lot of the local merchants is a really good daily use wallet.
Yeah. And I know it's third-party hosted. I know that rubs a lot of people the wrong way. And we had a conversation with somebody one evening where we were talking about the process flow we go through with people here in El Salvador when we're onboarding them in a business. And if they have a Chivo wallet, which is a government-hosted wallet, or we try to get them to Blink as soon as possible. And Blink is one of the first ones we promote. And I was having a conversation with a person, and they had this disgusted look on their face, and they were like, it's like, you have to teach them self-custody. And the thing is I'm like, the pupusa lady over there who's selling pupusas for 50 cents each, and she is worried about feeding her family tonight. Self-custody is the last thing she is thinking about, and is the last thing she has money to invest in. So right now, Blink, being a third-party hosted wallet, is providing, I think, the best service out there. And I say that because I've I use as many of these wallets as I can on a regular basis. And I've got solutions for people who have different sort of situations and setups and things like that. But they've got, like, we have been lucky enough to have direct communication with the Blink team. When we find a problem, they are on it, like they solve it. And they're all about usability. They're all about functionality. They're all about protecting people's funds. All of their code is open source. If we were technically skilled enough and had enough money, we could spin up all of our own versions of the Blink software and run it on our own servers and be completely sovereign, in effect, by running our own node and then using their wallet as our own, because it's open source, as our own wallet in the community. But these guys, I mean, when you've got that sort of integrity that you're like, man, all of our stuff's open source and we'll help you spin it up if you want to make these circular economies work. I mean, it's a certain level of respect that I can't ignore. And so there are other tools as well. I don't want to just rant on about Blink, but if you want to go self-custody, Phoenix Wallet is a fantastic wallet. Their self-custody service is probably one of the easier and cost-effective ways to operate on Lightning and self-custody at the moment. There are other tools out there which are rapidly developing, which is awesome.
For the people from the United States, we have a lot of people coming from the United States, and they're going, they're coming with Moon, which it's not as easy to use on the Lightning platform.
And it's expensive.
So they're going, what can we use? Because they can't, of course, get Wallet Associate. They can't get Blink. So the coin, we've been just playing around with the coin.
Feature support is excellent. And one of the reasons I recommend Phoenix as a self-custody wallet, and I know there's security issues, but that's, there's no perfect solution right now. But with Phoenix, if you, it's one of the best feature support self-custody wallets out there. It supports a lot of the features that Blink supports in terms of scanning static QR codes and all sorts of like logins and things like that. It's great. Another tool that I've started playing with is the Liquid network, as the fees have started to get quite high. And then the Aqua wallet in that toolkit is quite useful. And the Aqua wallet pulls together tools like the Bolts exchange and Sideswap, which allow you to basically move your Bitcoin in and out of the Lightning network, the on-chain network, and in and out of Aqua, which is quite interesting. I think that's a really interesting tool as well when you start looking at Samson Mow and what he's doing, and he is looking at nation state adoption, which, I mean, that's a completely another topic, but he spent a lot of time here in El Salvador and actually promoting a lot of things that are happening here, which is really, I think, really important, because I want more than one nation. I want more than one circular economy. I would love people to come and learn about what's happening here and do more of these in El Salvador, do more of these around the world. And the opportunity to do that is the tooling that's available is getting better and better every day. I hope that helps. That was like some crazy stuff I went down there.
Yes. I don't use Lightning that much. I should use it more, but I just don't have a lot of possibilities to spend it. And it's also a taxable event in my case, so it comes with a lot of difficulties. But I try to use it. I try to play around with my different kind of wallets and sending it from that wallet to another wallet. Then it's technically not a taxable event because I own it. And there are good tools out there, and I agree that there's not a perfect solution, and I think there's a lot of developing still going on, and there's a lot to come on the Lightning Network. As you need money to spend, and you probably spend only on the Lightning Network to avoid high fees, how's your ratio, or do you only have it on Lightning Network, or how's your ratio between like the base layer where you probably save the money, and then you have Lightning Network where you spend it? Like, this is how I imagine it, or how I would imagine it doing it. Like, I have a type or percentage which I save on my base layer, which I will not only touch if I actually need it or I have a big spend. And then I also have the Lightning Network, which is for daily spend. How's your percentage? How is your setup going on in that direction?
I love this question. we work as remote. Our job is all remote, so we can do it all over the internet. And so when I invoice people, I use a service called Bitwage. And basically what they do is I sign up with them. They say, hey, here's a bank account in a number of different countries. And then when I invoice, for example, people in the United States, they get a United States bank account. They pay the US dollars into that bank account, and they just use a reference code that I give them. We get Bitcoin. So we then get, you can split it however you like. So Bitwage allow you to split those payments into different currencies or wallets or whatever. So we then receive Bitcoin on chain. And then from that on chain setup, we basically manage out into savings and Lightning and things like that. So we know what we spend each month. Our living expenses are reasonably consistent. So when that money comes in, we take a chunk we actually take it to Liquid at the moment. And then we leave it in Liquid in an on-chain type of environment. And then we dribble it out to Lightning as we need it with a much lower fee due to the high fees on chain at the moment. So that enables us to pull like $200 to our Lightning wallet to be able to spend for the week. And that way we can go around the shops and buy the water or the food or the gas that we need and get some cash out to be able to buy vegetables and things like that. So it's a mix of tools right now. And as far as I'm concerned, there are a lot of people that spend a lot of money analyzing the share market, trying to figure out which stocks they should be buying or selling to try and preserve their wealth. And that's what I'm doing right now. We are learning the tools that we need to be able to manage our wealth. We don't feel like we need to be invested in the stock market because we're invested in a sound money or a hard money. And so to learn the tools that help us keep our fees down, protect our savings, and be able to be as liquid as possible under multiple different situations, that's where we're now spending our time instead of analyzing random tech companies and seeing which one might win or lose.
Yeah. And there's so many companies that are there to support. So as James mentioned, we've got Bitwage, but we also have Bitrefill. So for any of our household power bills, utilities bills, we can use Bitrefill. We pay that through Bitcoin or through Lightning. We will then pay all our household bills through that, which is great. And then, of course, there's the Ditto Banks card, which is a Salvadorian MasterCard. And we transfer Bitcoin into it. We change it over to USDC, and then we can buy.
We can literally spend it on fiat rails.
Yeah,
it's an amazing tool. So there's a tool set that we have that gives us, like the Ditto Banks card was a game changer for us in terms of being able to operate here when we get really stuck, which happens occasionally. A lot of the big chains here, like supermarket chains, actually accept Lightning natively. So you can go in and do a Lightning transaction with these companies. And then when we go to a hardware store, not all of them accept Bitcoin. We use our Ditto Banks card. We only transfer the money that we need to at the time. So if we need $100, we'll put $100 of Bitcoin on there. They charge us 1%. But basically it then gives us access to the fiat rails, basically in the store live, which is amazing. Like the access we have to the tooling right now is really cool.
Amazing. I love to have this talk with you because it shows that where Bitcoin can be all over the world in the future, in the near future. I think in the long-term future, we will see even more than it's now in El Salvador, all over the world. But that's another topic. We're having an end routine at the podcast where the previous guest asked the next guest a question. And this question is actually an interesting one because you touched on it a little bit before. And you said to it that it opens up a whole nother topic. Let's see if we're opening it up now. Which country will adopt Bitcoin next, do you think?
Oh man, what a question. I guess the question is it as a legal tender? Because I guess one of the things that's interesting at the moment is people are doing a soft adoption. So you have Guatemala, where Bitcoin Lake is, and Argentina, which have allowed the citizens of that country, or the people of that country, to transact in Bitcoin. They're allowed to transact in foreign currencies, and Bitcoin is a foreign currency. So they're allowed to transact there, which actually changes it. Like it's kind of like a soft way to add legal tender to those countries. So do they count already? Like, and then where else would we go? That's a great question. I would say if I was to narrow it down, there's a good chance it'll be another Latin American country. They seem to be a really good place to be.
I think follow Samson Mao.
Yeah, I'd be watching Samson Mao quite heavily. But if I was to have to put a small bet on it, I would say that it will actually be a town inside Argentina. I think there's a good chance we will see a specific town inside Argentina that decides to go on a Bitcoin, basically a Bitcoin standard effectively, and try and encourage it as a legal tender. We're already seeing towns inside Argentina that are going to try and create your own fiat currencies, which, I mean, you're just perpetuating the problem. But I guess that goes to show the understanding of people's understanding of money. So I'm going to say a town inside Argentina. I guess that means Argentina.
Argentina is an interesting one also with Javier Milei. I don't know like how it will play out with him. It looks good, but let's see what he can do. Where can people find you the best? Where can people reach out to you and get in contact with you?
Twitter would definitely be the best place, or X, whatever we call it now. And it's NJ, so Nicki James, NJ El Salvador. And so if you go to twitter.com or x.com/NJ El Salvador, you will find us. Please don't pay us. Like if we ask you how your trading's going, please don't.
Yes, it is not us.
It's not us. So just be careful there. We answer all the DMs that come in. That's the best place to find us. We also, every Monday, we do a live YouTube stream, and we encourage people to come on that stream and ask us a question. We answer all the questions that are asked on there live. So if you have a question about Bitcoin or El Salvador or whatever's going on for you, let us know in that chat, and we answer those every Monday. It's probably the best place. And that's also youtube.com/NJ El Salvador.
Great. Thank you for being on. It was an honor.
No,
it's great.
Thank you for giving us the time. One thing before we do go, if we have time, is just anyone who is looking at coming to El Salvador, we recommend coming up to Berlin. You know, it is an experience. We've got a whole new Bitcoin center where we've got a class for English and computer skills. We've got a podcast studio. We've got another sort of going to be a high-tech computer education center, all in the middle of town. And it's awesome.
It's got a welcome center, and so everybody's welcome to come and learn about Bitcoin and Berlin and what's happening here, which is awesome.
That's beautiful.
Thank you for hosting us.
Yes.
So please, when you come in November, make sure you book an extra week so you can come up and you can visit and experience Berlin.
I actually think of more like a month. Like I really want to experience it. If I come, it's still a big question if I'm able to, but because it's a long fly from Austria and it's a big thing. But I really want to come, and for me it's just a matter of time if it's this year, next year, or something else. And I'm really looking forward to meeting you all in El Salvador and hanging out with you guys.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. And have a great weekend.
Yes.